An Introduction to the Foundations of Qur'anic Exegesis. Author Taqi al-Din Abu al-Abbas. Ahmad ibn Taymiyyah, died 728 Hijri. Translation by Muhammad Al-Amrani. Shaykh al-Islam said, "In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. O Lord, make this easy and aid me by your mercy. All praise is God's. We seek his help and his forgiveness, and we seek refuge with God from the evils within ourselves and from the misdeeds of our actions. Whomever God guides, none can lead astray, and whomever he lets go astray, none can guide. I bear witness that there is no deity but God alone, without partner, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his servant and his messenger. May God's blessings and peace be upon him. Now then, some of my brethren asked me to write for him an introduction comprising universal principles that aid in the understanding of the Qur'an, in knowing its exegesis and meanings, principles by which the true is distinguished from the manifold falsehoods that are transmitted or devised concerning it, and a pointing out of the decisive proof that separates the contested claims, for, indeed, the books composed on tafsir are laden with the coarse and the fine, the plainly false and the manifestly true. As for knowledge, it is either a transmission verified from one immune to error, or a statement for which there stands a known proof. Whatever lies beyond this is either counterfeit, rejected, or suspended, not known to be spurious yet not proven sound. The community's need is acute for an understanding of the Qur'an, the firm rope of God, the wise reminder, the straight path which desires cannot warp, tongues cannot confound, which does not wear out through much repetition, whose marvels never cease, from which the learned never grow sated. Whoever speaks by it speaks truth. Whoever acts by it is rewarded. Whoever judges by it acts justly. Whoever calls to it is guided to a straight path. Whoever arrogant in might abandons it, God crushes him. And whoever seeks guidance elsewhere, God leads him astray. God Most High has said, "And so, when guidance from me comes to you, then whoever follows my guidance shall not go astray and shall not be unhappy. But whoever turns away from my remembrance, his shall be a life of narrowness, and on resurrection day we shall raise him blind. He will say, 'My Lord, why have you raised me blind when I was once seeing?' He will say, 'Thus it is. Our signs came to you, but you forgot them, and thus this day you are forgotten.'" 123, 126. And he said, "There has come to you from God a light and a clear book, whereby God guides those who seek his good pleasure onto the paths of peace, and brings them by his leave out of darkness into light, and guides them to a straight path." 5:15, 16. And he said, "Alif, Lam, Ra, a divine writ, we have bestowed upon you, so that you may bring humankind, by their sustainers' leave, out of darkness into light, onto the path of the mighty, the praiseworthy God, to whom belongs all that is in the heavens and all that is on earth." 14:1-2. And he said, "Thus have we revealed to you a spirit from our command. You did not know what the book was, nor what faith was, but we made it a light whereby we guide whom we will of our servants. And truly you guide to a straight path, the path of God, to whom belongs all that is in the heavens and all that is on earth. Behold, to God do all things return." 42, 52, 53. I have written this introduction, concise according to what God has made easy, as it flowed from the heart's dictation. And God is the one who guides to the way of right guidance. An Introduction to the Foundations of Tafsir Authorship. Abu al-Abbas Ahmad ibn Abd al-Halim ibn Taymiyyah Al-Harani. In the name of God, the most gracious, the dispenser of grace. Section on the care of the companions and the followers for the meanings of the Qur'an. It must be known that the Prophet, may God bless him and grant him peace, made clear to his companions the meanings of the Qur'an, just as he made clear to them its words. God saying, so that you may make clear to mankind what has been sent down to them, 1644, embraces both these aspects. Abu Abdul Rahman al-Sulami said, those who used to teach us the Qur'an, such as Uthman ibn Affan and Abd God ibn Mas'ud, and others told us that whenever they learned 10 verses from the Prophet, they did not move beyond them until they had learned what knowledge and action they contained. They said, thus we learned the Qur'an and knowledge and action all together. Hence they would spend considerable time memorizing a surah. Anas said, a man who had recited Al-Baqarah and Al-Imran would loom great in our eyes. And Ibn Umar spent several years memorizing Al-Baqarah, some said 8 years, as Malik recorded. For God Most High has said, a blessed book we have sent down to you, so that they may deeply ponder its signs. 38:29. And he said, will they not then ponder the Qur'an? 4:82, 47-24. And he said, have they then never pondered this word? 23:68. Now, pondering words without grasping their meanings is impossible. Likewise he said, we have sent it down as an Arabic Qur'an, so that you might use your reason. 12:2. To reason through speech encompasses understanding it. It is known that the purpose of any speech lies in understanding its meanings, not merely in voicing its words, and the Qur'an is, above all, worthy of this. Moreover, custom itself forbids that a people should read a book in some art like medicine or arithmetic and not seek its elucidation. How, then, with the word of God, which is their safeguard, the means of their salvation and happiness, the support of their faith and their worldly life? For this reason, disputes among the companions regarding the interpretation of the Qur'an were very few. Although among the followers they were more than among the companions, they were few compared to those after them. The more excellent the age, the more abundant were unity, accord, knowledge, and clarity. Among the followers there were those who took the whole of tafsir from the companions. As Mujahid said, I presented the entire Mushaf to Ibn Abbas, pausing him at every verse and asking him about it. Hence, Al-Thawri said, if tafsir comes to you from Mujahid, that suffices you. Accordingly, Al-Shafi'i, Al-Bukhari and other people of knowledge relied on his exegesis. Likewise, Imam Ahmad and others who compiled tafsir repeat roots from Mujahid more than from others. The point is that the followers took tafsir from the companions, just as they took from them the knowledge of the Sunnah, even though they might speak, in some of that, by way of inference and deduction, as they do in some matters of the Sunnah. Section on the early authorities' differences in tafsir as differences of variety. The disagreement among the earliest authorities in tafsir is little, whereas their disagreements in rulings are more than their disagreements in tafsir. Most of what is soundly transmitted of their differences goes back to a diversity of expression, not a contradiction. This is of 2 kinds. 1, that each of them expresses the intended meaning with a different wording from his companion wordings that point to qualities of the thing named that differ, though the thing named is one, like equivalent names that lie between synonyms and contraries, as in the names for sword, such as the cutter and the Indian blade. This is like the beautiful names of God, the names of his messenger, may God bless him and grant him peace, and the names of the Qur'an. All God's names point to one and the same reality. Thus, calling upon him by one of his beautiful names is not opposed to calling upon him by another. Say, call upon God, or call upon the All-Merciful, by whichever name you call, his are the most beautiful names. 1:17-1:10. Each name points to the named essence and to the attribute comprised by the name. Al-Alim points to the essence and to knowledge, Al-Qadir to the essence and to power, Al-Rahim to the essence and to mercy. Whoever denies that his names indicate his attributes while claiming to adhere to the literal his saying resembles the saying of the extremist Batiniya, the Karmatians, who say, one should not say he is living, nor he is not living, and so on, negating opposites altogether. These Batiniya do not deny a proper name that serves as a mere mark, like pronouns. Rather, they deny what his beautiful names entail of affirming attributes. Whoever agrees with them in their intent, while claiming excessive adherence to the outward, has in effect agreed with the Batiniya extremists. This is not the place to expand upon that. Our present purpose is that each of his names indicates his essence, the attribute in that name, and, by necessary implication, the attribute in another name. Likewise with the Prophet's names, Muhammad, Ahmad, the effacer who effaces disbelief, the gatherer, the last. And likewise with the names of the Qur'an, the criterion, guidance, healing, clarification, the book, and the like. If the questioner's purpose is to identify the named reality, we may speak of it by any of these names once the reality they name is known. Sometimes the name is a proper name, sometimes a description. For example, the one who asks about his saying, and whoever turns away from my remembrance, 21:24, may be told it is the Qur'an, for instance, or it is the scriptures he sent down. Remembrance is a verbal noun, and the verbal noun is sometimes annexed to the doer, sometimes to the object. Thus, the remembrance of God, in the second sense, is what one remembers him with, such as glory be to God, praise be to God. There is no deity save God. God is the greatest. But in the first sense, it is what he himself remembers his speech. This is what is intended in, and whoever turns away from my remembrance, 21:24, for he said before it, and so, when guidance from me comes to you, then whoever follows my guidance shall not go astray and shall not be unhappy, 21:23, and his guidance is that which he sent down as remembrance. And he said after that, he will say, my Lord, why have you raised me blind when I was once seeing? He will say, thus it is, our signs came to you, but you forgot them. 125, 126. The point is that one should come to know that remembrance here is his sent-down speech, or the servant's remembrance of him. Whether one says my remembrance, meaning my book, or my word, or my guidance, and the like, the named reality, is one. If the questioner seeks to know the specific quality contained in a given name, then something more than merely identifying the named reality is required, like one who asks about Al-Qudus, Al-Salam, Al-Mu'min, knowing that they name God, yet wishing to know the meaning of his being Qudus, Salam, Mu'min, and so forth. With that understood, the early authorities often referred to the same thing by expressions that identify it, even if they carry qualities not found in another expression, like one who says, Ahmad is the gatherer, the effacer, the last, or Al-Qudus is the all-forgiving, the merciful, meaning that the named reality is one, not that one attribute is the other. Clearly, this is not a contradictory disagreement, as some imagine. An example is their interpretation of the straight path. Some said, It is the Qur'an that is following it, because in Ali's hadith, recorded by Al-Tirmidhi and by Abu Nu'aym through various routes, the Prophet said, "It is the firm rope of God, the wise reminder, and the straight path." Others said, "It is Islam," citing the hadith of Al-Nawas ibn Sam'an, recorded by Al-Tirmidhi and others. God has given a parable of a straight path. On either side of the path are walls, in the walls are open doors, hanging upon each door are curtains. A caller at the head of the path calls out, and another calls from above the path. He said, "The straight path is Islam. The two walls are God's limits. The open doors are God's prohibitions. The caller at the head of the path is God's book, and the caller above the path is God's inner admonisher in every believer's heart." These two sayings agree for the religion of Islam is the following of the Qur'an. Each, however, points to an aspect other than the one the other points to, just as the word path intimates yet a third quality. Similarly with the saying, "It is the Sunnah and the community," or "It is the way of servanthood," or "It is obedience to God and His Messenger." All of them point to one and the same reality, yet each describes it by one of its aspects. 2. That each of them, from a general word, mentions one of its kinds by way of exemplification, and to alert the listener to the category not by presenting a definition exactly coextensive with that which is defined. It is like when a non-Arab asks about the meaning of the word bread, and a loaf is shown to him, and he's told, "This," the indication being to the kind, not to this particular loaf alone. An example is his saying, "Then we bequeath the book to those of our servants whom we chose, and among them are those who wrong themselves, and among them are those who follow a middle course, and among them are those who by God's leave vie with one another in good deeds." 35:32. It is known that those who wrong themselves includes those who neglect obligations and those who perpetrate prohibitions, that the middling includes those who perform obligations and avoid prohibitions, and that the foremost includes those who draw near by the good deeds beyond the obligatory. The middling are the people of the right hand, and the foremost the foremost. They are those brought near. 56:10-11. Then each interpreter mentions this with regard to a given kind of acts of obedience. One might say the foremost is he who prays at the beginning of the time. The middling is he who prays during it, and the one who wrongs himself is he who delays the late afternoon prayer until yellowness. Another might say, the foremost, the middling, and the one who wrongs himself are mentioned near the end of Al-Baqarah, for he mentioned the doer of good in charity, the wrongdoer in consuming usury, and the just in fair trade. People in wealth are either doers of good or just or wrongdoers. The foremost is the doer of good who performs the recommended acts along with the obligations. The wrongdoer is the consumer of usury or the withholder of zakat, and the middling is he who pays the obligatory zakat and does not consume usury, and so on with such statements. Every saying that mentions a kind included in the verse serves to make the listener aware that the verse encompasses it and alerts him to its counterparts. For defining by an example is sometimes easier than defining by an abstract formula, and sound reason grasps the class just as it does when one points to a loaf and says, "This is bread." Often in this vein they say, "This verse was revealed regarding such and such," especially when a specific person is mentioned, as in the causes of revelation recounted in Tafsir, that the verse on Zihar was revealed about the wife of Aus ibn al-Samit, that the verse of mutual imprecation was revealed about Uwaymir Ajlani or Hilal ibn Umayyah, that the verse of Kalala, collateral inheritance, was revealed about Jabir ibn Abdgod, that his saying, "and judge between them by what God has sent down," was revealed concerning Banu Qurayza and Al-Nadir, 549. That whoever turns his back to them on that day was revealed regarding Badr, 816. That the testimony between you, when death approaches any of you, was revealed about the case of Tamim al-Dari and Adi ibn Bada, 5106. And Abu Ayyub's statement that "do not throw yourselves by your own hands into ruin" was revealed about us, the helpers, 2195, and many analogues of this which they mention, whether about people among the pagans in Mecca, or among the people of the book Jews and Christians, or among the faithful. Those who say such things do not intend that the ruling of the verse is restricted to those individuals to the exclusion of others. No Muslim, no rational person would say that. People may dispute whether a general text revealed because of a particular cause is restricted to that cause or not. But no scholar among the Muslims ever said that the generalities of the book and the Sunnah are restricted to a specific individual. At most, it is said that they are restricted to the kind of that individual, so that it encompasses whatever is like it, even if the generality of expression as expression is not intended. A verse revealed on account of a specific occasion, if it contains a command or a prohibition, embraces both the person in question and all others who share his condition. And if it conveys praise or blame, it likewise encompasses that individual and all who stand in a like position. To know the occasion of revelation aids in grasping the meaning of the verse, for knowledge of the cause births knowledge of what it causes. Hence, the sounder view among the jurists is that if the intent of one who has sworn an oath is unknown, we return to the cause that gave rise to his oath, and to what stirred and provoked it. And when they say this verse was sent down about such and such, they sometimes mean that this was the very cause of its revelation. And sometimes they mean that the matter falls within the scope of the verse, even if it was not the cause, just as one might say, by this verse such and such is intended. Scholars have differed over a companion's statement. This verse was revealed concerning such and such. Should it be treated as a musnad report, with an attributed chain, like the statement of a cause for which it was revealed, or as his interpretive explanation, which is not musnad? Al-Bukhari includes such statements among the musnad reports, while others do not, and most of the musnad compilations follow this latter usage, like the musnad of Ahmad and the like. But when a specific cause after which it was revealed is mentioned, they all include such reports among the musnad. Once this is understood, one person saying, "It was revealed about such and such," does not contradict another's saying, "It was revealed about such and such," if the wording embraces both, just as we have mentioned under the rubric of exegesis by way of example. And if one of them mentions a cause for which it was revealed, and another mentions a different cause, both may be true. The verse may have been sent down in the wake of those events, or it may have been revealed twice, once for this cause and once for that. These are the two forms of diversity in interpretation that we noted, sometimes arising from the diversity of names and attributes, and sometimes from mentioning certain kinds or classes of what is named through illustrative examples. These predominate in the exegesis of the first generations of this community, the exegetical diversity so often imagined to be contradiction. And among the divergences reported from them are those in which the wording bears both possibilities, either because the word is homonymous, as with Kaswara, 7451, said to mean the hunter or the lion, and As'asa, 81.17, said to indicate either the oncoming of night or its retreat, or because the word is univocal in origin. Yet what is intended is one of two things like the pronouns in "Then he drew near and came down until he was at a distance of 2 bow lengths, or nearer, 53:8-9, or like by the dawn, and by the 10 nights, and by the even, and the odd, 89:1-3, and the like. In such cases it may be permissible to intend all the meanings mentioned by the early authorities, and it may not. The former may be because the verse was revealed twice intended this way at one time and that way at another, or because a homonymous term may bear both meanings, as the majority of Maliki, Shafi'i and Hanbali jurists and many of the theologians allow, or because the term is univocal and thus general, unless there is a reason to restrict it. In such instances, if both statements are sound, they belong to the second of the two categories. Among the statements reported from them, mistaken by some for contradiction, is their practice of expressing meanings with words that are near in sense, but not strictly synonymous. For true synonymy in the language is scarce, and in the diction of the Qur'an it is either rare or absent. Seldom can one render a single Quranic term by a single term that conveys all of its force. What one can offer is an approximation, and this is among the reasons for the Qur'an's inimitability. Thus, when someone says, regarding "on the day when the sky will heave with a heaving," 52.9, that al-ma means movement, this is an approximation, for ma is a light and rapid motion. Likewise, when one says revelation, wahi, is informing, or takes "we have revealed to you," for 163, to mean "we have sent down to you," or glosses "we decreed unto the children of Israel," 17.4, as "we informed them." All this is approximation, not precision, for wahi is a swift and subtle communication, and "we decreed unto them" is more specific than mere informing. It includes a sending down to them and an inspiration in them. The Arabs often include in a verb the meaning of another verb and extend it with that verb's preposition. From here arose the error of those who thought some prepositions simply stand in place of others, so they say regarding "he has indeed wronged you by asking for your you to be added to his yous," 38:24, that "to" means "together with," and in "who are my helpers unto God," 61:14, that "unto" means "together with," and the like. The accurate view is what the Basran grammarians called tadman, semantic inclusion. The asking for the you includes the sense of gathering it and joining it to his yous. Likewise, in "and indeed they were about to tempt you away from that which we revealed to you," 1773, the verb includes a sense of turning you aside or deflecting you. In "and we gave him victory over the people who denied our signs," 21:77, it includes the sense of "we delivered him and rescued him," and in "from which the servants of God drink," 76.6, it includes the sense of "by which they are quenched." Analogous cases are many, and whoever says that there is no doubt, la raiba, 2.2, means no uncertainty, has offered an approximation, for raib carries a sense of agitation and internal trembling, just as in the prophetic word, "leave what makes you doubtful for what does not make you doubtful," and in the report that he passed by a gazelle lying down and said, "let no one disturb it." As certainty is shaded by stillness and inner assurance, so doubt is shaded by restlessness and motion. Even if uncertainty may entail this sense, its literal form does not denote it. Likewise, when one glosses "that book," 2.2, as "this Qur'an," that too is approximation. For although the referent is one, an indication tied to presence differs from an indication tied to remoteness and transcendence, and the word book carries with it the sense of being inscribed and contained, in a way that Qur'an, as recited and made manifest, does not. Such nuances abound in the Qur'an. Thus, if one says that no soul be consigned, and tubsala, 670, means be imprisoned, and another says be held in pledge, there is no contradiction of opposites, even though one imprisoned may or may not be pledged. These are approximations to the intended sense. Bringing together the expressions of the early authorities in such cases is very beneficial, for the totality of their words points more clearly to the intended meaning than one or two expressions alone. And yet, despite this, there remains some real disagreement among them, as there is in matters of law. We know that in all that common people cannot but differ over, the essentials are known indeed, mass transmitted among the general public or the learned, as in the number of the prayers, the measures of their bowings, their times, the obligatory alms and their thresholds, the determination of the month of Ramadan, the circumambulation and the standing, the stoning of the pillars, the prescribed stations and the like. Thereafter, the differences among the companions regarding the grandfather and the siblings, and the issue of al-musharaka and the like, do not cast doubt upon the great majority of inheritance questions. What most people need concerns the direct line parents and children and the kalala, collaterals, among brothers and sisters, and, from their womenfolk, the spouses. For God sent down 3 detailed verses on inheritance. In the first, he mentioned the ascendants and descendants. In the second, the collateral kin, who inherit by fixed shares, like the spouses and the mother's son. And in the third, the collateral heirs, who inherit by agnatic relation full and paternal brothers. The concurrence of a grandfather and full or paternal brothers is rare. Hence, it did not occur in Islam until after the Prophet's passing, God's blessings and peace be upon him. Disagreement may arise from a hidden proof or heedlessness of it, or from not having heard it, or from an error in understanding the text, or from believing in a stronger countervailing consideration. Our purpose here is to set forth the outlines, not the details. Section. On the 2 kinds of divergence in exegesis. The first type, divergence in exegesis arising from transmission. Differences in exegesis are of 2 kinds. One kind rests purely on transmission, the other is known through means other than transmission. For knowledge is either a transmission worthy of trust or an inference established by proof, and the transmitted may be from the one protected from error, the Prophet, or from other than him. Our concern here is with the genus of transmitted material, whether from the Prophet or others. Of this first kind, some of it can be sifted into sound and unsound, and some of it cannot. This second sort of transmitted matter, regarding which we have no path to assert its truth, is, for the most part, of no benefit. To discourse about it is to indulge in superfluous talk. As for what the Muslims need to know, God has set up a proof indicating the truth regarding it. An example of what does not benefit and for which there is no decisive proof is their disagreement about the colour of the dog of the companions of the cave, or the particular piece of the cow with which Moses was told to strike, or the dimensions of Noah's ark and what timber it was made of, or the name of the boy whom Al-Khidr killed, and the like. Such matters can only be known by transmission. If something of this kind is transmitted soundly from the Prophet, God bless him and grant him peace, like the name of Moses' companion being Al-Khidr, then it is known. What is not like that, but drawn from the people of the book, like what is reported from Ka'b or Wab or Muhammad ibn Ishaq, and others who took from them may not be affirmed nor denied without proof. As is established in the authentic report from the Prophet, God bless him and grant him peace. When the people of the book relate something to you, neither affirm them nor deny them. For it may be that they tell you something true, and you would deny it, or that they tell you something false, and you would affirm it. Likewise, what is transmitted from some of the followers, tabi'an. If it is not stated that they took it from the people of the book, then whenever the followers differ among themselves, the words of some are not a proof against others. And whatever is transmitted in such matters from some companions with a sound report, the soul finds it more reassuring than what is transmitted from some of the followers, for it is more likely that the companion heard it from the Prophet, or from someone who heard it from him. And when a companion asserts something definitively, how could one say that he took it from the people of the book when they were forbidden from affirming them? The point is that this kind of disagreement, whose truth cannot be known, and the mere recounting of opinions about which yields no benefit, is like the knowledge of those hadiths for which there is no indication of authenticity, and the like. As for the first kind, what can be sifted into sound, and unsound this exists, praise be to God in what we need. It is often the case that in exegesis, as in hadith and sirah, matters are reported about our Prophet God's blessings, and peace be upon him and other prophets, and sound transmission disproves them. This occurs both in material whose basis is transmission, and in material that can also be known by other means. To sum up, transmitted reports that are needed in religion, God has set up proofs to distinguish their soundness and otherwise. And it is known that what is transmitted in exegesis is, for the most part, akin to what is transmitted in battles and eschatological events. Hence, Imam Ahmad said, "Three disciplines have the least connected chains: exegesis, chronicles of battles, and eschatological reports. And it is also reported from him, they have no basis, meaning no fully connected chains, because they are mostly mursal reports, like what is related by Urwa ibn al-Zubayr, al-Sha'bi, al-Zuhri, Musa ibn Uqba, ibn Ishaq, and those after them like Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Umawi, al-Walid ibn Muslim, al-Waqidi, and their likes in the chronicles of battles. The most knowledgeable of the battles were the people of Medina, then the people of Syria, then the people of Iraq. The Medinese knew them best, for those events took place among them. The people of Syria were people of campaigns and struggle, so they had knowledge of jihad, and the Prophet's conduct in war not found among others. For this reason, people highly esteemed the book of Abu Ishaq al-Fazari in this field, and reckoned al-Awza'i the most knowledgeable of this discipline among the scholars of the regions. As for exegesis, the most learned of people in it were the people of Mecca, for they were the disciples of Ibn Abbas like Mujahid, Atta ibn Abi Rabah, and Ikrimah, the freedman of Ibn Abbas, and others of his circle, such as Tawus, Abu al-Shatha, and Sa'id ibn Jubair, and the like. Likewise, the people of Kufa, among the disciples of Ibn Mas'ud, some of whose knowledge distinguished them above others. And among the Medinese scholars in exegesis is Zayd ibn Aslam, from whom Malik took exegesis, and from whom it was also taken by his son Abd al-Rahman, and from Abd al-Rahman by Abd God ibn Wahb. Mursal reports, when their roots multiply, and are free of deliberate collusion or accidental convergence, are certainly sound. Transmission can only be either true, conforming to the event, or false, whether through deliberate lying or through error. Whenever it is safe from deliberate lying and error, it is, without doubt, true. Thus, if a report comes from two or more distinct roots, and it is known that the informants did not collude in fabricating it, and it is known that such an agreement could not occur by mere chance without intent. We know that it is sound. It is like a person relating an event that took place and recounting the details of the words and actions within it. Then another person appears known not to have colluded with the first, and recounts what the first recounted of the details of those words and actions. We know with certainty that the event is true in general, for if each of them had lied deliberately or in error, it would not ordinarily happen that both would arrive at all those details whose concordance two persons could not achieve without collusion. A man may, by coincidence, compose a line of verse, and another compose something like it, or one may utter a lie, and another utter a similar lie. But if one composes a long poem with many themes on a single rhyme and consonant ending, it is not the norm that someone else composes something identical in wording and meaning with such length unless he took it from him. Likewise, if someone relates a lengthy report with many themes, and another relates one like it, then either they colluded, or one took it from the other, or the report is true. By this method we know the truth of most material whose roots multiply in this way, even when none of the individual roots suffices on its own, whether because it is mursal or because its narrator is weak. That said, this method does not secure the exact wording and fine details that cannot be learned in this way. Such matters require the paths by which precise wording and details are established. Hence we know by mass transmission, tawatur, the Battle of Badr, and that it occurred before Uhud. And we know with certainty that Hamza, Ali, and Ubaidah went forth against Utbah, Shaybah, and Al-Walid, that Ali slew Al-Walid, that Hamza slew his peer, though one may be unsure whether his peer was Utbah or Shaybah. This principle is a key of great use in reaching certainty about many transmitted reports in hadith, exegesis, and the chronicles of battles, and about what is transmitted of people's sayings and deeds and the like. For this reason, if a hadith that lends itself to this method is transmitted from the Prophet God, bless him and grant him peace by two roots, and it is known that one did not take it from the other, then one is certain it is true, especially when it is known that its transmitters are not people who deliberately lie, but at most are vulnerable to forgetfulness and error. Whoever has come to know the companions like Ibn Mas'ud, Ubay, Ibn Ka'b, Ibn Umar, Jabir, Abu Sa'id, Abu Huraira, and others knows with certainty that none of them was one to deliberately lie about the Messenger of God. God bless him and grant him peace, let alone those even more scrupulous than they. This is like a man who, through long experience, knows that a certain person is not one to rob, to waylay people, or to bear false witness. Likewise, with the followers in Medina, Mecca, Syria, and Basra, whoever knows the likes of Abu Salih al-Samman, al-A'raj, Sulaiman ibn Yasar, Zayd ibn Aslam, and their peers, knows with certainty that they were not men who would deliberately lie in hadith, let alone those of even greater standing, such as Muhammad ibn Sirin, Al-Qasim ibn Muhammad, Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib, Ubaidah al-Salmani, Al-Qamah, Al-Aswad, and the like. The only fear is of error, for error and forgetfulness frequently befall a human being. And there are master memorizers about whom people have known that they were extraordinarily far from such slips, like Al-Shabi, Al-Zuhri, Urwa, Qatada, Al-Thawri, and their peers, particularly Al-Zuhri in his time, and Al-Thawri in his time. One might even say no error is known of Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri, despite the abundance of his hadith and the breadth of his memory. The point is that a long hadith, when transmitted from two distinct routes without collusion, cannot be error, just as it cannot be a deliberate lie, for error does not encompass a long, variegated account. It occurs in parts of it. Hence, if this narrator relates a long, variegated story, and the other relates it as the first related it, without collusion, it cannot be error in all of it, just as it cannot be a lie in all of it without collusion. This is why only some detail of such a narrative is likely to be mistaken, like the hadith of the Prophet's purchase of a camel from Jabir. Whoever examines its roots knows with certainty that the hadith is sound, even if they differ about the exact price. Al-Bukhari made this clear in his Sahih. Indeed, most of what is in Al-Bukhari and Muslim consists of what we can be certain the Prophet God, bless him and grant him peace, said, for most of it is of this nature, and because the scholars have received it with acceptance and affirmation, and the community does not concur upon an error. If the hadith were false in reality, and the community affirmed it and received it, they would have agreed on affirming what is false in reality. And such an agreement upon error is impossible. Before we know of such consensus, we may countenance that a given report is false or erroneous, just as we may, before we learn of consensus, consider it possible that a rule established by an apparent text or a probable analogy might in reality be otherwise, whereas once they have agreed upon the rule, we are certain that it is true inwardly and outwardly. Hence, the majority of scholars across the schools hold that when the community receives a single narrator report, Kabar al-Wahid, with acceptance affirming it or acting by it, it yields knowledge. This is the position recorded by the authors of legal theory among the Hanafis, Malikis, Shafi'is and Hanbalis, save a small group of latecomers who followed a party among the theologians who denied this. Yet many theologians, or most of them, agree with the jurists, the hadith scholars and the early generations. This is the view of the majority of the Asharis, like Abu Ishaq and Ibn Furak. Ibn al-Baqilani was the one who denied it, and he was followed by the likes of Abu al-Ma'ali, Abu Hamid, Ibn Aqil, Ibn al-Jawzi, Ibn al-Khatib, al-Amidi, and the like. The first view is that recorded by Sheikh Abu Hamid, Abu al-Tayyib, Abu Ishaq, and their peers among the Shafi'is, by Qadi Abd al-Wahhab, and the like among the Malikis, by Abu Ya'la, Abu al-Khattab, Abu al-Hasan ibn al-Zaghuni, and the like among the Hanbalis, and by Shams al-Din al-Sarakhsi and his peers among the Hanafis. And if the consensus of the community on affirming a report yields certainty regarding it, then the relevant consensus is the consensus of the scholars of hadith, just as the relevant consensus for legal rulings is that of those who know the commands, prohibitions, and permissions. Our point here is that multiplicity of roots, together with the ordinary absence of collusion or coincidence, yields knowledge of the content of a transmitted report. This greatly benefits us in knowing the states of the transmitters. In such cases, we benefit from the narrations of the unknown, the weak memorizers, and from mursal reports and the like. Hence, the scholars wrote down such hadiths, saying they are suitable for corroboration and consideration, for which they are not suitable otherwise. Ahmad said, I may write a man's hadith so that I may consider it. An example is Abd ibn Laha'a, the judge of Egypt. He was among the most prolific narrators and among the righteous. But because his books burned, errors crept into his later narrations, so his narrations are to be considered and used for corroboration. Often his narrations are coupled with those of Alayth ibn Sa'd, Alayth being a proof, firm, an imam. Just as they adduce as corroboration the hadith of one with poor retention, They also weaken some narrations of a trustworthy, truthful, precise narrator when it becomes clear to them by proofs they adduce that he erred in them. They call this the science of hadith defects, which is among their noblest sciences. Thus a hadith may be narrated by a precise, trustworthy narrator, yet he erred an error that is known, whether for a manifest reason, as when they knew that the Prophet, God bless him and grant him peace, married Maymuna while not in consecration, ihram, and that he prayed 2 cycles inside the house, and they judged Ibn Abbas's report that he married her while consecrated, and that he did not pray there to be among the slips. Likewise, they knew that he performed 4 umrahs, and they knew that Ibn Umar's statement that he performed umrah in Rajab was among the slips. They knew that he performed tamattu while safe during the farewell pilgrimage, and that Uthman's statement to Ali, "We were afraid that day," was among the slips. And that which appears in some routes in Al-Bukhari, that the fire will not be filled until God creates for it another creation, is among what they judge to be erroneous. Such examples are many. People, in this regard, are of 2 extremes. One group consists of those among the dialecticians and their like who are far from the knowledge of hadith and its people. They cannot distinguish the sound report from the weak one, and so they harbour doubts about the authenticity of certain traditions, or about certainty regarding them, though, among those who are learned in this science, such reports are well known and beyond dispute. The other group comprises those who claim to follow hadith and act upon it. Whenever they encounter a wording in a report transmitted by a trustworthy narrator, or they come across a chain of transmission that appears sound on the surface, they wish to place it on the same level as that which scholars have decisively affirmed. Then, when such a report conflicts with a well-established authentic text, they begin to force upon it contrived and lifeless interpretations, or else they press it as evidence in matters of knowledge, even though the people of hadith know well that such a course is erroneous. And just as there are evidences for a hadith by which its truth is known indeed, at times known decisively, so too there are evidences by which its falsehood is known again, at times decisively. Thus one may be certain of the falsehood of what the fabricators among the sectarians and the extremists in virtues have transmitted, such as the reports concerning the day of Ashura and their likes, in which one reads that whoever performs 2 cycles of prayer shall receive the like of the reward of such and such prophets. In the science of Qur'anic exegesis as well, there is a sizable body of such forgeries. For instance, the report transmitted by Al-Thalab, Al-Wahid and Al-Zamakhshar regarding the special merits of each individual surah of the Qur'an. It is fabricated by the consensus of the learned. As for Al-Thalab himself, he possessed goodness and piety, yet he was a night-gatherer, collecting whatever he found in the books of tafsir sound, weak, and fabricated alike. His companion Al-Wahid had a keener command of Arabic than he, but he was farther from safety and from following the forebears. Al-Baghawa's tafsir is an abridgment of Al-Thalab, yet he safeguarded it from fabricated hadiths and innovated opinions. Fabrications abound in the books of tafsir, for example, the many explicit reports about audible recitation of the basmala, and the long hadith concerning Ali giving charity with his ring during prayer, which is fabricated by unanimous agreement of the scholars. Similarly, the claim that in God's word and for every people there is a guide, 13, the guide is Al, and that in his word that a conscious ear might take it in, 69, the address is your ear, O Al. Section 2. On divergence in exegesis, owing to divergent methods of reasoning. As for the second source of disagreement, what is known by reasoning rather than transmission, most of its error stems from two causes that arose only after the tafsir of the companions, their followers, and the followers of the followers in goodness. Indeed, the exegeses that relay only the words of those early generations are scarcely touched by either of these two causes, such as the tafsirs of Abd al-Razak, Waqar, Abd b. Humayd, and Abd al-Rahman b. Ibrahim Dihim, and such as what is transmitted from Imam Ahmad, Ishaq b. Rahawai, Baqa b. Makhlad, Abu Bakr b. al-Mundhir, Sufyan b. Uyayna, Sunayd, Ibn Jarir, Ibn Abi Hatim, Abu Sa'ad al-Ashaj, Abu Abdullah bin al-Majah, and Ibn Mardawayh. The two causes are these. 1. People who first adopt certain doctrinal meanings and then attempt to force the words of the Qur'an to conform to them. 2. People who interpret the Qur'an merely on the basis of what the Arabic language may allow in the speech of any eloquent Arab, without regard for the one who speaks the Qur'an, the one upon whom it was sent down, and those to whom it was addressed. The first group consider the meaning they have already decided upon, without attending to what the words of the Qur'an themselves entail by way of indication and clarification. The second group consider the bare wording what, in their view, an Arab might intend by it, without attending to what befits the speaker, nor to the overall flow and context. Moreover, the latter often err even in the linguistic possibility of the meaning they seek to ascribe to the wording, just as the former often err in the very soundness of the meaning with which they interpret the Qur'an. True, the first group's attention to meaning precedes their attention to wording, while the second group's attention to wording precedes their attention to meaning. The first group subdivides further. At times they strip the Quranic wording of what it signifies and what it was intended to convey. At other times they impose upon it what it neither signifies nor was intended to convey. In both cases, what they intend to negate or affirm may itself be false, so that their error lies both in the proof and in the conclusion. Or what they intend may in itself be true, so that their error lies in the proof, not in the conclusion. And just as this has occurred in the interpretation of the Qur'an, it has occurred in the interpretation of hadith as well. Those who went astray, both in proof and conclusion, include sects among the people of innovation who adopted views contrary to the truth, embraced by the median community that does not agree upon error, namely the forebears of this ummah and its leading imams. They turned to the Qur'an and construed it upon their own opinions, sometimes adducing verses as proofs for their doctrine when there is no proof therein, and sometimes twisting what contradicts their doctrine by altering the words from their proper places. Among such were the Khawarij, the Rafida, the Jahmiyyah, the Mu'tazila, the Qadariyah, the Murji'ah, and others. Consider, for example, the Mu'tazila. They were among the most verbose and contentious of people, and they authored exegeses based on the principles of their school, like the tafsir of Abd al-Rahman b. Kaysan al-Asam, the teacher of Ibrahim b. Ismail b. Ulayya, who debated al-Shafi', the works of Abu Ali al-Jubba, the great tafsir of al-Qadr, Abd al-Jabbar b. Ahmad al-Hamadan, that of al-E b. Isa al-Rumman, and al-Kashaf of Abu al-Qasim al-Zamakhshar. These and their likes embrace the doctrines of the Mu'tazila. The Mu'tazila have 5 foundational principles which they themselves name: divine unity, justice, the rank between the two ranks, carrying the threat into effect, and commanding right and forbidding wrong. Their unity is the unity of the Jahmiyyah, whose substance is the negation of the divine attributes and more besides. They say that God is not to be seen, that the Qur'an is created, that he is not above the universe, and that there inheres in him no knowledge, no power, no life, no hearing, no sight, no speech, no will, no attribute whatsoever. As for their justice, its substance includes that God did not will all that occurs, nor did he create all of it, nor is he capable of all of it. In their view, human acts, good and evil, are not created by God, and he willed only what he commanded legislatively. Whatever else occurs, occurs without his will. The later Shah have agreed with them in this, such as Al-Mufad and Abu Ja'far al-Tuso and their likes, and Abu Ja'far authored a tafsir upon this method, adding to it the doctrine of the Imamiyyah, the Twelvers, for among the Mu'tazila there is none who says this, nor any who denies the caliphates of Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Al. Among the principles shared by the Mu'tazila and the Khawarij is carrying the threat into effect in the hereafter, that God will not accept intercession for the people of grave sins, and that none of them will exit the fire. Without doubt, groups among the Murji'ah, the Karamiyah, the Kullabiyah and their followers refuted them sometimes well, sometimes poorly, until both sides fell into opposing extremes, as expounded elsewhere. The point is, such people adopted a view, and then forced the words of the Qur'an to serve it without any precedent among the companions, the followers, the rightly guided imams, whether in their opinions or in their exegesis. There is no false interpretation of theirs, but that its falsehood appears from many angles, sometimes by knowing the corruption of their doctrine itself, sometimes by knowing the corruption of the way they interpreted the Qur'an, whether as a proof for their doctrine or as a reply to their opponents. Among these are those who possess fine eloquence and weave innovations subtly into their discourse, and most people do not perceive it, like the author of Al-Kashaf and the like. Thus it passes among multitudes who do not consciously espouse falsehood, that from their exegeses there spreads what God wills. I have seen scholars, exegetes, and others who cite in their own writings passages from such works that conform to their underlying principles, even when such principles are known, or at least suspected, to be unsound, and yet they do not realize it. Because of the extremism and misguidance of such figures, the Imama Rafidah entered the scene more forcefully, then the philosophers, then the Karmatians and others, until matters reached even beyond that. Matters grew grave indeed with the philosophers, the Karmatians, and the Rafidah, for they interpreted the Qur'an in ways that would leave a learned person in endless astonishment. As for the Rafidah, they claim, for example, that perish the two hands of Abu Lahab, and perish he indeed. 111 refers to Abu Bakr and Umar, that if you were to ascribe partners, your work would surely be brought to nothing. 1339 alludes to the dispute between Abu Bakr and Allah regarding the caliphate, that, behold, God commands you to sacrifice a cow. 267 is Aisha, that fight the leaders of unbelief. 9:12 refers to Talha and Al-Zubayr, that he has let loose the two seas. 55:19 are Al and Fatima, that out of them come pearls and coral. 55 are Al-Hassan and Al-Husayn, that we have encompassed everything in a manifest record. 36 is Al-B, Abu Talib, that about what are they asking, about the tremendous tiding. 78:1-2 is Ali Abu Talib, and that your only guardian is God and his messenger, and those who have attained to faith, those who are constant in prayer and render the purifying dues while bowing down. 5. This refers to Alam. They then cite the hadith fabricated by the consensus of scholars regarding his giving charity with his ring during prayer. Likewise, they claim that upon them are blessings from their sustainer and grace. 57. Was revealed concerning Al when Hamza was slain. Close to this, at least in certain respects, is what many exegetes mention about the words the patient, the truthful, the devoutly obedient, the spenders, and those who seek forgiveness before dawn. 3:17, namely that the patient is God's messenger, the truthful, Abu Bakr, the devoutly obedient, Umar, the spenders, Uthman, and those who seek forgiveness, Al. And similarly in Muhammad is God's messenger, and those who are with him are firm against the deniers of truth. Compassionate amongst themselves, you see them bowing and prostrating. 48. They assign those who are with him to Abu Bakr, firm against the deniers to Umar, compassionate amongst themselves to Uthman, and you see them bowing and prostrating to Al. Even stranger is the claim by some that by the fig is Abu Bakr, and the olive is Umar, and Mount Sinai is Uthman, and this secure city, 95:13, is Al, and the like of these fables. Such claims either interpret the text with what it cannot possibly denote for these words, do not signify those persons, or they constrict general and unqualified expressions to a single individual. As for God's saying, and those who are with him firm against the deniers of truth, compassionate amongst themselves, you see them bowing and prostrating. 48. 29 Ulsain. All of these are attributes of the same group, namely those who are with him. They are, as the grammarians would say, predicates following predicates, all describing one subject. It is impermissible to assign each attribute to a different individual. Likewise, to declare that your only guardian is God and his messenger and those who have attained to faith, 5:6, refers to Al alone, or that and he who came with the truth and who affirmed it, 39, refers to Abu Bakr alone, or that those among you who spent and fought before the victory are not equal, 57. 10 refers to Abu Bakr alone. All such constrictions are unfounded. The Tafsir of Ibn Atiyah and those like him follows the Sunnah and the mainstream more closely and is safer from innovation than that of al-Zamakhshar. Yet had he presented the words of the early authorities as they exist in the transmitted tafsirs with full fidelity, it would have been better and more fitting. For he frequently transmits from Muhammad Bijara al-Tabar, whose tafsir is among the most majestic and weighty, yet he omits altogether what Ibn Jarrah had transmitted from the early generations, and instead cites what he calls the view of the investigators, by which he means a faction of the people of Kalam, who established their principles by methods not unlike those by which the Mu'tazila established theirs, even if they are closer to the Sunnah than the Mu'tazila. Still, each must be given his due, and it must be recognized that this belongs to exegesis by doctrine. Thus, when the companions, the followers, and the imams have a position regarding a verse, and then others come who interpret that verse differently because of a doctrine they have adopted, one not held among the companions or their followers, in goodness, then such people become akin to the Mu'tazila and others among the innovators in this regard. In sum, whoever departs from the doctrines and exegesis of the companions and the followers to what contradicts them has erred thereby indeed. He has innovated, even if he is a mujtahid whose error is forgiven. The aim here is to clarify the paths of knowledge and its proofs, and the ways of attaining the right. We know that the Qur'an was recited by the companions, the followers, and the followers of the followers, that they were most knowledgeable of its exegesis and its meanings, just as they were most knowledgeable of the truth with which God sent his messenger. Thus, whoever contradicts their statement and interprets the Qur'an in a way that opposes their interpretation has erred in both proof and conclusion. It is also known that everyone who opposes their word has a pretext, whether rational or transmitted, as is elaborated elsewhere. The purpose here is to draw attention to the sources of disagreement in exegesis and to the fact that among its greatest causes are the false innovations that drove their adherents to alter words from their proper contexts and to interpret the speech of God and his messenger otherwise than what was intended. Foundational to grasping this is that one should know the very statement they opposed and that it is the truth, that the exegesis of the forebears contradicts their exegesis, that their exegesis is an innovation, and then that one should know in detail the corruption of their interpretation by means of the proofs God has set up for clarifying the truth. Likewise, among those who authored works interpreting hadith, just as among those who interpreted the Qur'an, there occurred similar errors in later times. As for those who err in the proof but not in the conclusion, these include many among the Sufis, preachers, jurists and others. They interpret the Qur'an with meanings that are in themselves correct, but the Qur'an does not indicate them. Much of what Abu Abd al-Rahman al-Sulam mentioned in his Haqa'iq al-Tafsir is of this kind, although among what they have mentioned there are also false meanings. Such cases belong to the first category, namely error both in proof and in conclusion, whenever the meaning intended is unsound. Section: Interpreting the Qur'an, by the Sunnah, and by the sayings of the companions. If one were to ask, what are the best paths of tafsir? The answer, the soundest way, is to interpret the Qur'an by the Qur'an. What is briefly stated in one place is explained elsewhere. What is condensed in one passage is elaborated in another. If this does not suffice you, then turn to the Sunnah, for it clarifies the Qur'an and elucidates it. Indeed, Imam Abu Abdullah Muhammad Asib Everything that the Messenger of God has ruled is based on what he understood from the Qur'an. For God Most High says, "Behold, we have bestowed this book on thee, setting forth the truth, so that thou mightest judge between people in accordance with what God has shown thee, and do not contend for the treacherous." Chapter 5. And he says, "And upon thee we have bestowed the reminder, so that thou might make clear to people what has been sent down to them, and that they might reflect." 16:44. And he says, "And we have not bestowed this book upon thee, except that thou might make clear to them that wherein they differ, and as a guidance and grace for people who believe." 16:16. Hence the Messenger of God, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "Lo, I have been given the Qur'an and its like along with it," meaning the Sunnah. The Sunnah too was sent down to him by revelation, as the Qur'an was, though it is not recited as the Qur'an is recited. Imam al-Shafi'i and others adduced many proofs of this, which is not the place to detail. The point is that you seek the Qur'an's interpretation in the Qur'an itself. If you do not find it, then in the Sunnah. As the Messenger of God, peace be upon him, said to Mu'adh when he dispatched him to Yemen, "By what will you judge?" He said, "By the Book of God." He said, "If you do not find an explicit ruling?" He said, "Then by the Sunnah of the Messenger of God." He said, "If you do not find an explicit ruling?" He said, "Then I will strive with my opinion." The Messenger of God, peace be upon him, then struck his chest and said, "Praise be to God, who has made the envoy of the Messenger of God to accord with what pleases the Messenger of God." This hadith is found in the Musnads and Sunan with a good chain. Section: Interpreting the Qur'an by the sayings of the companions. If you do not find the interpretation in the Qur'an or the Sunnah, then return to the sayings of the companions, for they were most knowledgeable thereof, by virtue of what they witnessed of the Qur'an and the circumstances particular to them, and by virtue of their sound understanding, true knowledge, and righteous action, especially their scholars and leaders, such as the 4 rightly guided caliphs and rightly guided imams, like Abdullah bin Mas'ud. Imam Abu Ja'far Muhammad bin Jarir al-Tabari said, Abu Quraib reported to us saying, Jabir bin Nuh informed us from Al-A'mash, from Abu al-Duha, from Masruq, who said, Abdullah, meaning Ibn Mas'ud, said, By him, besides whom there is no God, no verse of God's book was sent down, but that I know regarding whom it was revealed and where it was revealed. And were I to know of someone more learned than I in God's book, to whom the camels could carry me, surely I would travel to him. Al-Amash also related from Abu Wa'il that Ibn Mas'ud said, When a man among us learned 10 verses, he would not go beyond them until he had come to know their meanings and acted in accordance with them. Among them was the learned sage of this ummah, Abdullah bin Abbas, the cousin of the Messenger of God, peace and blessings be upon him, the interpreter of the Qur'an, by virtue of the blessing of the Prophet's supplication for him. O God, grant him deep understanding of the religion and teach him the interpretation. Ibn Jarir said, Muhammad bin Bashar reported to us, saying, Waqa informed us, saying, Sufyan informed us from Al-A'mash, from Muslim, from Masruq, who said, Abdullah, meaning Ibn Mas'ud, said, What an excellent interpreter of the Qur'an is Ibn Abbas. He then transmitted it from Yahya bin Dawood, from Ishaq al-Azraq, from Sufyan, from Al-A'mash, from Muslim bin Sabah Abu al-Duha, from Masruq, from Ibn Mas'ud. What an excellent interpreter of the Qur'an is Ibn Abbas. He also related it from Bundar, from Ja'far bin On, from Al-Amash likewise. This is a sound chain to Ibn Mas'ud's statement about Ibn Abbas. Ibn Mas'ud died on the sound view in the year 33. Ibn Abbas then lived on for 36 years after him, so imagine what knowledge he accumulated after Ibn Mas'ud. Al-Amash also related from Abu Wa'il, Ali deputized Abdullah bin Abbas over the pilgrimage. He addressed the people, and during his sermon he recited Surat al-Baqarah in another report, Surat al-Nur, and he interpreted it in such a manner that, had the Byzantines, the Turks, and the Dailam heard it, they would have embraced Islam. For this reason, most of what Ismail bin Abd al-Rahman al-Sudd al-Kabir transmits in his tafsir comes from these 2 men, Ibn Mas'ud and Ibn Abbas. Yet at times he relates from them what they themselves had relayed of the reports of the people of the book, which the Messenger of God, peace be upon him, permitted, where he said, Convey from me, even if a single verse, and relate from the children of Israel, there is no harm, and whoever lies upon me deliberately, let him take his seat in the fire. Al-Bukhari narrated it from Abdullah bin Amr. Thus, Abdullah bin Amr had come upon 2 saddlebags among the books of the people of the book on the day of Al-Yarmouk, and he would relate from them, understanding this hadith to grant permission. However, these Israelite reports are mentioned for corroboration, not for belief. They fall into 3 types. 3. That whose truth we know from what we possess that bears witness to it this is true. 4. That whose falsehood we know from what we possess that contradicts it this is false. 5. That about which we are silent, neither affirming nor denying. Its narration is permissible in view of the foregoing. Most of this yields no benefit that returns to a religious matter. For this reason, the scholars of the people of the book themselves differ greatly about such things. And among our exegetes there arise disagreements due to this, like when they mention, for example, the names of the companions of the cave, the colour of their dog, and their number, or the kind of wood Moses' staff was of, or the names of the birds God revived for Abraham, or specifying the particular part of the cow with which the slain man was struck, or the type of tree from which God addressed Moses, and so forth, of what God left unspecified in the Qur'an, whose specification brings no benefit to those morally responsible, neither in their worldly affairs nor in their religion. Nonetheless, transmitting their differences on such matters is permissible, as God Most High says. Some will say they were 3, the 4th of them was their dog, and others will say 5, the 6th of them was their dog, guessing at the unseen, and others will say 7, and the 8th of them was their dog. Say, my sustainer knows best their number, none knows them but a few. So do not argue about them, except in outward argument, and do not ask any of them concerning them. 18:22. This noble verse encompasses the etiquette appropriate to this subject, and teaches what is fitting in matters like it. For he, exalted be he, relates 3 statements about them. He weakens the first 2, and he leaves the third unaddressed, indicating thereby its soundness. For had it been false, he would have refuted it, just as he refuted the other 2. He then guides us to the fact that knowing their number yields no real benefit. Thus, one should say in such matters, my sustainer knows best their number. 18:2. For none knows it except a few to whom God has disclosed it. Hence his saying, so do not argue about them except in outward argument. 18:2. That is, do not exhaust yourself in what yields no benefit, and do not ask any of them concerning them. 18:2. For they know regarding them nothing but conjecture about the unseen. This is the best way to transmit disagreements, to encompass the statements made on the matter, to point out which of them is correct, to invalidate the false, and to mention the benefit and fruit of the disagreement, so that dispute does not drag on over what yields no benefit, thereby distracting from what is more important. As for the one who relates a disagreement but does not encompass people's statements regarding it, he is deficient, for perhaps the correct view lies among that which he omitted. And as for the one who merely relates the disagreement and leaves it open, without indicating which view is sound, he too is deficient. If he validates what is unsound knowingly, he has deliberately lied. If unknowingly, he has erred. Likewise, whoever sets up disagreement over what yields no benefit, or relates multiple statements that are diverse in wording, but reduce in meaning to 1 or 2 statements, such a person squanders time and multiplies what is not true, like one clad in 2 garments of falsehood. God is the one who grants success to what is right. Section: Interpreting the Qur'an by the sayings of the followers. If you do not find the interpretation in the Qur'an, nor in the Sunnah, nor among the companions, then many of the Imams have turned to the sayings of the followers, such as Mujahid b. Jabr, who was a marvel in tafsir. Muhammad b. Ishaq said, Aban b. Salih related to us from Mujahid, who said, I presented the Mushaf to Ibn Abbas 3 times from its opening to its closing, stopping him at every verse and asking him about it. And through the chain to Al-Tirmidhi. He said, Al-Husayn bi Mahd al-Basr told us, Abd al-Razzaq told us from Ma'mar, from Qatada, who said, There is no verse in the Qur'an but that I have heard something concerning it. And through his chain he said, Ibn Umar told us, Sufyan b. Uyayna told us from Al-Amash, who said, Mujahid said, Had I recited according to the reading of Ibn Mas'ud, I would not have needed to ask Ibn Abbas about much of the Qur'an, as I did. And Ibn Jarar said, Abu Qurayb told us, Talq bi Ghanam told us, from Uthman al-Makkur, from Ibn Abi Mulaika, who said, I saw Mujahid asking Ibn Abbas about the tafsir of the Qur'an while holding his tablets, and Ibn Abbas would say to him, Right, until he had asked him about the whole of the tafsir. For this reason, Sufyan al-Thawr used to say, If the tafsir comes to you from Mujahid, it suffices you. And likewise, Sa'd bi Jubair and Ikrimah, the freedman of Ibn Abbas, and Ata bi Abu Rabah, and Al-Hasan al-Basr, and Masruq bi al-Ajda, and Sa'd bi al-Musayyib, and Abu al-Aliya, and Al-Rabah bi Anas, and Qatada, and Al-Dahak bi Muzahim, and others among the followers, their followers, and those after them. Their sayings are cited regarding a given verse, and you find in their expressions a variety of phrasings which the unlearned might mistake for disagreement, and then report them as divergent opinions, even though it is not so. For one may express a meaning by reference to its consequence, or to something akin to it. Another may state the very thing itself. In many places, all such expressions amount to one and the same meaning. Let the discerning mind be alert to this, and God is the guide. Shubah bi al-Hajjaj and others have said, the sayings of the followers in matters of subsidiary rulings are not binding, so how could they be binding in tafsir? By this they mean that such sayings are not binding upon others who disagree with them. This is true. If, however, they agree upon something, one cannot doubt that it is binding. If they differ, then the statement of some of them is not binding upon others, nor upon those who come after them. In such cases, one returns to the language of the Qur'an, or to the Sunnah, or to the general usage of the Arabs, or to the sayings of the companions regarding the matter. Chapter on interpreting the Qur'an by mere opinion. As for interpreting the Qur'an on the basis of mere opinion, it is forbidden. Mu'ammal narrated to us, Sufyan narrated to us, Abd al-A'la from Sa'id ibn Jubair, from Ibn Abbas, who said, the Messenger of God, blessings and peace be upon him, said, Whoever speaks about the Qur'an without knowledge, let him prepare his seat in the fire. Waqi narrated to us, Sufyan narrated to us, from Abd al-A'la al-Thalabi, from Sa'id ibn Jubair, from Ibn Abbas, who said, the Messenger of God, blessings and peace be upon him, said, Whoever speaks about the Qur'an without knowledge, let him prepare his seat in the fire. And with the same chain, up to Al-Tirmidhi. Abd ibn Humayd narrated to us. Hibban ibn Hilal narrated to us. Suhail, the brother of Hazm al-Kati, narrated to us. He said, Abu Imran al-Jawni narrated to us, from Jundub, who said, the Messenger of God, blessings and peace be upon him, said, Whoever interprets the Qur'an by his own opinion and happens thereby to be correct, has nonetheless erred. Al-Tirmidhi said, This hadith is garb, and some of the hadith scholars have criticized Suhail ibn Abi Hazm. Likewise, it has been related from some of the people of knowledge among the companions of the Prophet, blessings and peace be upon him, and others that they were severe in forbidding exegesis of the Qur'an without knowledge. As for what has been narrated from Mujahid, Qatada, and others among the learned, that they did interpret the Qur'an, one should not suppose of them that they spoke concerning the Qur'an, or commented upon it without knowledge, or from their own selves. Indeed, what has been narrated from them supports what we have said. They did not speak from themselves without knowledge. Whoever speaks about the Qur'an by his own opinion has burdened himself with what he does not know, and has taken a path other than that which he was commanded. Even if, in reality, he were to hit upon the correct meaning, he has still erred because he did not come to the matter through its proper door. Like one who judges among people in ignorance, he is in the fire even if his judgment happens to coincide with the truth, though his offence is lighter than one who is actually wrong, and God knows best. In a similar vein, God Most High has named the slanderers liars, saying, "And if they do not bring the witnesses, then in the sight of God they are indeed the liars." 24:13. The slanderer is thus a liar, even if, in reality, he accused one who had fornicated, for he has reported what it was not lawful for him to report, and assumed a claim he had no knowledge of. And God knows best. For this reason, a number of the earliest generations were scrupulous about interpreting what they did not know. Shu'bah narrated from Sulaiman, from Abd-God ibn Murrah, from Abu Ma'mar, who said, Abu Bakr al-Siddiq said, "Which earth will carry me, and which sky will shade me, if I should say about God's book that which I do not know?" Abu Ubaid al-Qasim ibn Sallam said, Mahmud ibn Yazid narrated to us from Al-Awwam ibn Hawshab, from Ibrahim al-Taymi, that Abu Bakr al-Siddiq was asked about God's saying and fruits and herbage. 80:31. He said, "Which sky will shade me, and which earth will carry me, if I should say about God's book that which I do not know?" Chain disconnected, Munkati. Abu Ubaid also said, Yazid narrated to us from Humayd, from Anas, that Umar ibn al-Khattab recited from the pulpit, "And fruits and herbage." 80:31. He then said, "This fruit we know, but what is herbage, al-ab?" Then he turned back to himself and said, "This is indeed affectation, O Umar." Abd ibn Humayd said, Sulaiman ibn Harb narrated to us, Hamad ibn Zayd narrated to us from Thabit, from Anas, who said, "We were with Umar ibn al-Khattab, and on the back of his shirt were 4 patches. He recited, 'And fruits and herbage,' 80:31, and then said, 'What is herbage?' Then he added, 'This is indeed affectation. It does not harm you not to know it.' All of this is to be understood as meaning that they may, God be pleased with them, sought to uncover the specific nature of al-ab. Otherwise, that it is a growth from the earth is obvious and not unknown, because he, exalted, says, 'And we caused to grow therein grain and vines and edible plants and olive trees and date palms and gardens dense with foliage.' 80:27-30. Ibn Jarir said, Yaqub ibn Ibrahim narrated to us. Ibn Ulayya narrated to us, from Ayub, from Ibn Abi Mulaika, that Ibn Abbas was asked about a verse concerning which, were some of you to be asked, you would certainly speak. Yet he refused to say anything about it. Its chain is sound. Abu Ubaid said, Ismail ibn Ibrahim narrated to us, from Ayub, from Ibn Abi Mulaika, who said, a man asked Ibn Abbas about God's saying, "On a day the measure of which is 1,000 years as you count." 32:5. Ibn Abbas said to him, "Then what of his saying, 'On a day the measure of which is 50,000 years'?" 70.4. The man said, "I only asked you so that you would tell me." Ibn Abbas replied, "They are 2 days which God has mentioned in his book. God knows best about them." He disliked speaking about God's book without knowledge. Ibn Jarir said, Yaqub, meaning Ibn Ibrahim, narrated to me. Ibn Ulayya narrated to us from Mahdi ibn Maymun, from Al-Walid ibn Muslim, who said, Talq ibn Habib came to Jundub ibn Abd-God and asked him about a verse of the Qur'an. So Jundub said, "I place you under solemn charge. If you are a Muslim, stand up from me." Or he said, "Do not sit with me." Malik narrated from Yahya ibn Sa'id, from Sa'id ibn al-Musayyab, that whenever he was asked about the interpretation of a verse of the Qur'an, he would say, "We do not speak about the Qur'an with anything." Al-Layth narrated from Yahya ibn Sa'id, from Sa'id ibn al-Musayyab, that he would speak only about what was firmly known of the Qur'an. Shu'bah narrated from Amr ibn Murrah, who said, a man asked Sa'id ibn al-Musayyab about a verse of the Qur'an. He said, "Do not ask me about the Qur'an, ask the one who claims that nothing of it is hidden from him," meaning Ikrimah. Ibn Shawdab said, Yazid ibn Abi Yazid narrated to me, "We used to ask Sa'id ibn al-Musayyab about lawful and unlawful matters, and he was the most knowledgeable of people, but when we asked him about the interpretation of a verse of the Qur'an, he fell silent as though he had not heard." Ibn Jarir said, Ahmad ibn Abdah al-Dabi narrated to me, Hamad ibn Zayd narrated to us. Ubayd God ibn Umar narrated to us, who said, "I met the jurists of Medina, and indeed they held speech in exegesis in great awe, among them Salim ibn Abd God, Al-Qasim ibn Muhammad, Sa'id ibn al-Musayyab, and Nafi." Abu Ubayd said, Abd God ibn Salih narrated to us from Al-Layth, from Hisham ibn Urwa, who said, "I never heard my father interpret a single verse from God's book." Ayyub ibn Aun and Hisham al-Dastuai narrated from Muhammad ibn Sirin, who said, "I asked Ubaidah al-Salmani about a verse of the Qur'an. He said, 'Those who knew the circumstances of what the Qur'an was sent down about have gone. So be mindful of God and stick to what is sound.'" Abu Ubaid said, Mu'ad narrated to us from Ibn Aun, from Ubaid God ibn Muslim ibn Yasar, from his father, who said, "When you report something from God, pause, look at what precedes it and what follows it." Hishim narrated to us from Mugi Ira, from Ibrahim, who said, "Our companions used to avoid exegesis and stand in awe of it." Shu'bah narrated from Abd God ibn Abi al-Safr, who said, Al-Sha'bi said, "By God, there is not a single verse, except that I have asked about it, but it is, after all, narration on behalf of God." Abu Ubaid said, Hishim narrated to us. Umar ibn Abi Za'idah informed us from Al-Shabi, from Masruk, who said, "Beware of exegesis, for it is reportage on behalf of God." These sound reports, and others like them, from the leaders of the earliest generations, are to be understood as their scrupulousness about speaking in exegesis without knowledge. As for one who speaks about what he knows by the standards of language and of the law, there is no blame upon him. For this reason, statements of exegesis have been transmitted from these very men and from others. There is no inconsistency here. They spoke about what they knew and kept silent about what they did not know. This is what is incumbent upon everyone. For just as silence is obligatory concerning that of which one has no knowledge, so too speech is obligatory when one is asked about what one does know, because of his saying, "You shall make it clear to people and not conceal it." 3:187. And because of what has come in the hadith reported through various routes, whoever is asked about knowledge and conceals it will be bridled on the day of resurrection with a bridle of fire. Ibn Jarir said, Muhammad ibn Bashar narrated to us. Mu'amal narrated to us. Sufyan narrated to us from Abu al-Zinad, who said, Ibn Abbas said, "Exegesis is of 4 kinds. A kind which the Arabs know by the idiom of their language, and an exegesis which no one may be excused for being ignorant of, and an exegesis known to the scholars, and an exegesis known only to God. And God, glorified be He, exalted, is most knowing." Chapter which exegesis is nearest to the book and the Sunnah. It was asked of Shaykh al-Islam, Taqi al-Din Ahmad ibn Taymiyyah, may God envelop him in his mercy and good pleasure, Which of the commentaries is closest to the book and the Sunnah, al-Zamakhshari's, al-Qurtubi's, al-Baghawi's, or others? He answered, "May God grant him mercy. Praise be to God. As for the commentaries in people's hands, the soundest of them is the Tafsir of Muhammad ibn Jarir al-Tabari. He presents the statements of the earliest generations with established chains, and there is no innovation in it, nor does he transmit from those accused of unreliability, such as Maqatil ibn Bukair and al-Kalbi. There are many commentaries not transmitted with chains, such as the Tafsir of Abd al-Razzaq, Abd ibn Humayd, Waqi, ibn Abi Qutaybah, Ahmad ibn Hanbal, and Ishaq ibn Rahawayh. As for the three commentaries about which you asked, the safest from innovation and weak hadith is al-Baghawi's, but it is an abridgment of al-Tha'alibai's tafsir, from which he removed fabricated hadiths and the innovations therein and other matters besides. As for al-Wahidi, he is a student of al-Tha'alibai and more knowledgeable than him in Arabic. Yet al-Tha'alibai is, in himself, more innocent of innovation, though he may mention it in imitation of others. His tafsir and that of al-Wahidi al-Basit, al-Wasit, and al-Wajiz contain noble benefits, yet they also include much chaff in the form of false transmissions and other such things. As for al-Zamakhshari, his commentary is packed with innovation upon the way of the Mu'tazila, denying the attributes of God, denying the beatific vision, affirming the createdness of the Qur'an, denying that God wills all that comes to be, or that he creates human acts together with other foundations of the Mu'tazila. Their foundations are 5, which they call divine unity, justice, the station between the two stations, the fulfillment of the threat, and commanding right and forbidding wrong. But the meaning of divine unity with them entails the negation of the attributes. Hence Ibn Tumart named his followers al-Muwahidun, and this is but a deviation in respect of God's names and his signs. And the meaning of justice with them entails denial of the divine decree, namely that God creates people's acts, wills all that comes to be, and has power over all things. Some among them even deny the precedence of God's knowledge and his decree, but this is the doctrine of their leaders, and these are the circles frequented by al-Zamakhshari. For his school is that of al-Mughira ibn Ali and Abu Hashim and their followers. The school of Abu al-Husayn and the Mu'tazila, who follow his way, has 2 strains, the elderly and the wooden, mystic and literalist factions. As for the station between the 2 stations, it is their claim that the grave sinner is not to be called a believer in any sense, just as he is not to be called an unbeliever, so they place him between 2 stations. And the fulfillment of the threat with them means that the grave sinners of the community are eternally in the fire. They will not leave it by intercession or otherwise, just as the Khawarij say. And commanding right and forbidding wrong with them entails the permissibility of rising against the leaders and fighting them by the sword. These principles al-Zamakhshari packed into his book with a mode of expression that most people do not perceive nor grasp his aims therein, together with fabricated hadiths and a scarcity of transmission from the companions and the followers. Al-Qurtubi's tafsir is far better than his, much closer to the way of the people of the book and the Sunnah, and further removed from innovation. And although each of these books inevitably contains material that merits critique, justice must be done among them, and every party given its due. Ibn Atiyah's tafsir is better than al-Zamakhshari's, sounder in transmission and inquiry, and further from innovation, though it contains some of it. Indeed, it is far better than his. it may even be the weightiest of these exegeses. Still, Ibn Jarir's is sounder than all of them. There are many other commentaries besides, such as those of Ibn al-Jawzi and al-Mawardi. Chapter on combining the 7 canonical readings. Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, may God have mercy on him, was asked about combining the 7 readings, al-Qira'at al-Sab. Is it a sunnah or an innovation? Were they combined in the era of the Messenger of God, blessings and peace be upon him, or not? And does one who gathers them have an extra measure of reward over one who reads by a single narration, or not? He replied, May God have mercy on him. Praise be to God. As for knowing the readings themselves and preserving them, this is a followed sunnah, taken by the later from the earlier. Thus, knowing the reading with which the Prophet, blessings and peace be upon him, recited, or with which he instructed them to recite, or to which he gave permission after they had recited, is sunnah. One who is knowledgeable in the readings and preserves them has a distinction over one who knows none of this and knows only a single reading. As for combining them in the prayer or within one and the same recitation, this is a reprehensible innovation. But combining them for the sake of preservation and study is a form of ijtihad that groups among the readers have engaged in, completed by God's praise and His grace.